Hello, hello, and welcome to our amazing live chat with the fabulous Erin Petti. And we are super excited to celebrate Thelma B, everything Thelma B. And I see there are folks out there who are also really excited about Thelma. So that is awesome. And we have some cool things planned. We're going to take your questions. So get those in the comments. We have 1,000 burning questions, and I guess we're gonna get out some tarot. If you want your tarot cards read, like get ready, like put that in the comments. We're gonna get those out. So we're super excited. But let's find out who's here because we have some special guests here too. So I'm gonna send it down to Ash and just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, hi, I'm Ash Van Otterloo. I am children's author of spooky books Cattywampus and A Touch of Ruckus, and I adore Erin. I've just started listening to the first Thelma B book because I'm a huge audiobook fan. The audiobook is fantastic. It's a wonderful story, and I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, it's so good, right? I'm listening to the audio too, like right now. I'm almost done. I'm like this close. So we're not going to give any spoilers, by the way. If you haven't finished it, don't worry about it. There's going to be no spoilers, but I will give you one spoiler. The audio is really good. So check out the audio. Marina, tell us a little bit about yourself.
My name's Marina Cohen, and I'm the author of a few spooky middle grade books, most recently Shadow Grave. And I love audiobooks too, because it allows us to multitask, clean the house while we get to listen to these amazing, creepy stories. And I'm very excited to be here to celebrate Thelma B with you. Yay, Toil and Treble. And yeah, I have 1,000 burning questions. So
I love it. I know, it's so exciting. And by the way, another spoiler alert, number 2, our next talk, I think, well, coming up in October, we're talking all about Shadow Grave by the also amazing Marina Cohen. So that's going to be super exciting. And I'm Kim Ventrella, author of various spooky books. And also my new bestie, Mr. Gordo, is joining me tonight. He is not a gourd, he is a squash, but his name is Mr. Gordo, which I believe was the name of Buffy's like little stuffed pal from Buffy the Vampire Slayer. So that's where that's from. But now it's a squash. All right, so let's head over though, because what we really want to do is learn about our amazing special guest, Erin. So just tell us a little bit about yourself over there.
Okay, hi friends. I'm Erin. I'm the author of 2 books now instead of 1. It's so exciting. The Peculiar Haunting of Thelma B. And today we are celebrating the release of Thelma B. in Toil and Treble. And I'm just so excited to join you. Thelma B. is an 11-year-old from a fictional town in Massachusetts that is kind of like a little bit of a jazzed up Stars Hollow, a little bit crazy, a little bit quirky to the nth degree. And she loves science and the scientific method. And then one day, and this is in the first book, no huge spoilers, a ghost makes their way into her life and just turns everything upside down. So she's got to reckon with all of this kind of chaos. Her father is kidnapped by the ghost. She has to get her family back together. She has to team up with her friends, and she forms a really strong, amazing kind of crew of ghost hunting pals. And they take this adventure together, and she learns a lot about herself on the way. And in the second book, we kind of pick up where we left off now that she kind of is well into this ghost hunting world, and using all of those scientific and parascientific methods to solve cases with her pals. But then something in town turns, and the paranormal activity gets a little intense and a little overwhelming. And it turns out that someone's pulling the strings behind the scenes. So Thelma has to now, with her understanding of her new kind of responsibility and who she's becoming, she has to really come to grips with what the best thing to do is to beat this kind of big bad without a lot of help from the adults who are around. And of course, her friends are always there. So yeah, that's Thelma B. in Toil and Treble. Witches and tree monsters and, haunted woods and tons of like tacos and pancakes and all the stuff I like. kind of shoveled it all in there. Wow.
Yeah, it's kind of funny that I brought up Buffy randomly because I feel like there is that cozy like Scooby Gang kind of feel where like this crew is like hanging out and like you said, yeah, they're having all these like amazing like snacks and like making cool plans in the basement. So you have like this kind of amazing feel that is so much fun to read about. So like that was really, really fun. And then I also love, so I guess I'm gonna bring this up first thing just because it was so funny to me. Like, so you have their crew of kids, which are kind of the serious, like paranormal investigators. And then you have these like ghost slayers that show up out of nowhere. And that's kind of like your opportunity to like rag on like ghost hunting shows that are not so serious, maybe. And I love that because I personally love to make fun of ghost hunting shows. I thought that was really
like I don't know if everyone here, because like we're all spooky writers, like everyone here must have some kind of relationship with reality TV ghost hunting shows, right? And I'm like, I don't know, like I am obsessed, like I love watching it, and at the same time I'm like, why do you guys keep screaming? Why did you lock that guy in a crypt? He's claustrophobic. You know what I mean? But it's like really, it's a solid like 80-20 split between like total like admiration and fangirling and 20% just like, this is kind of ridiculous.
Yes, I love that. That's so funny that you got that in there right up front. And plus, we know like Thelma does love science, so she has this kind of duality to her personality too. And so then we kind of got this other duality in there. But so that was so interesting. And there's just so many like fun things to love about this. But I guess let's start with like the title because right away we have Toil and Treble. So you're bringing in one of the most like fun aspects of it, which is like this a cappella group and how like music and singing kind of plays a role. So talk about that a little bit. Like where did that musical element come into it?
It was, you know what, it's something that kind of, gosh, I don't even remember the first moment where I thought that it would be, maybe I thought it would be funny at first if like an a cappella group was like a secret society, because I mean, so like I'm not sure who's on the call, but like I worked at WERS, which is a college radio station. The radio station was probably the reason why the a cappella group got into the story, because I worked all through college. I worked at WERS. I was like a DJ and like, you know, all this kind of stuff. And then as an adult, like full circle, like with 2 children, I came back and I worked in like fundraising at WERS at, you know, this college radio station that had this really like cool clubhouse feel. You know what I mean? Like it was just, and it's so professional now, so professional. Back in like the 90s, it was, or like the early 2000s, it was a little bit more chaotic. You know what I mean? Like there was a lot more of like, you know, kids doing what they're going to do when they're 18 and 19 years old. And I always thought that even when I was like 18 years old and like sitting at the desk while like everybody's doing stuff and like logging CDs, I was like, this is a great backdrop. Like this is a great environment for either like someone should write something. And then kind of when I was thinking about ideas for the second book, I was kind of combing through my little internal catalog of like things that I love, because I really do kind of just, I really focus on like the things that give me energy and I feel like I want to spend time there. And like that physical location, again, the physical location of that, and like to make it middle school instead of college,
yeah.
and to like ramp up the ridiculousness to an 11, like that was really fun. And then I was thinking, you know, when you're thinking about that, there's an all a cappella show, you know, on ERS, and like I always thought it was cool that we had all this kind of like really like super diverse programming, like, and so the a cappella thing kind of came in that way, like through having the radio station there. Then I thought about a cappella, and I have to give my husband the credit, because I often forget this now that I'm so far down the road, but I asked him one night, I remember I was like really stuck, and I was like, what is a great pun that would be the name of an a cappella group that was secretly a coven? And he like literally, he like paused for like 10 seconds and he was like, Toil and Treble.
Wow, that's amazing.
I truly have, like, my husband's name is Ryan. He's a very funny man, and I have to give him full credit for that.
Yeah, props to Ryan. High
You did
five
good.
out there. That's a good one. Wow. I love it. That's so cool. Like I said, there's so many cool things that we need to talk about in this book. And just a reminder, if you're out there listening and you do have a question, get that in the comments and we will answer it. And I know Marina and Ash haven't had a chance to talk yet. So I'm going to send it over to Marina. You said you have 1,000 questions, so we can just do like one right now. Let's narrow it down a little bit.
So we'll start with one. So I was thinking a lot about the first Thelma B and book, and I was actually thinking about all of your books, and spooky middle grade in general. And so what I wanted to ask you was, spooky middle grade is a very interesting kind of an area to write in, because it allows us to write some very, very creepy things with a lot of shivery moments, but it also allows us to build in the humor and to build in the heart, right, of the character. So my question to you is, how do you find balance between all of those? So keeping your book scary enough while bringing in the humor that you have and the heartwarming character development and things. How do you find that balance? Does it just come to you?
That's such a cool, and I would love to hear everyone's answer to this afterwards, because I think it is a really cool, it's a really cool space. My kind of rule of thumb, and I do this really just intuitively, I think, and I don't know if I would do this if I was writing in another category, but like I think that as scary as you make something, like for me, I have to make something as funny and ridiculous. Like it's like I like, and it's not like I have a spreadsheet out. It's just like when I'm going through the beats of it, I'm like, and I don't know, for you guys that are reading the second book, if you've bumped into Bobby Cho yet, but he was such a great. They meet a new friend who is like way overzealous about the ghost slayers and way overzealous about everything. And he was such an amazing opportunity to, in the second book especially, to like break the tension. It's like, oh my God. And then like, because he's just like, he's operating on he's operating on at his own speed, and he's integrating information, but it's like he's himself all the time, and he just is so chaotic. And that like it was like a very like natural way to kind of build things up and then like breathe and break it down. And it's not just that particular character, but I do think it's the way that makes it feel like you can run a whole marathon, I guess, because if it was so scary for me, if it was so scary, I could only do a sprint. I could probably just do a short story. You know what I mean? But to run a whole marathon and to engage with it myself, not even for I do care very much about the readers, but for myself as an author, to engage with something for over such a long period of time, like it needs to have that balance. So yeah, I love that. What about you? What about you all?
I think I was thinking about the scene. There's a scene in the first Thelma B book where I think it's the first time. I don't guess I'll spoil a lot, because I mean, obviously there's some haunting that goes on. So when she first starts seeing like the little, she has the first encounter. She has this thought that like, I love spooky stuff. I love this stuff, but I'm really unhappy that this is happening in my home. Like, right? Like this isn't my real life. This is a little bit too real. And I was thinking, yeah, I think readers feel the same way too. Like even it was a little meta moment. I was like, because myself as a reader, like I'm reading a book and I'm loving this spooky stuff, even though it's about somebody else having a real moment, right? There's always like a degree of separation that lets us know you're safe. Like, you can process this terror. Like, you are free to either feel it or not feel it. You can put it down, or, so it gives you the ability to kind of like self moderate your own scary intake, which is so important, I think, for younger readers, especially because, as we're older, we've had like a lot of years to build trust with ourselves. Like, I can keep myself safe by doing this. I have a lot of tools in my toolbox. Like, I have the ability to navigate the world in a way that I know I've got myself. Like, I'm safe, right? But when we're younger and you're still building that toolbox, it's so beautiful to have like that humor buffer or that like degree of separation buffer. So I think it's so nice the way that you have included like humor throughout your book. And I think like in my writing too, it's so important to build in those little moments of, and now we breathe. Like, it's a little wink from the author that says, hey, I care about you and I want you to feel good here. Like, I'm being a good host to you. I understand that this is a little scary. So it's kind of like a little, I don't know. It always, a good joke in the middle of a scary book always feels like blowing a little kiss to my readers. You know what I mean? Like, it's okay. We're good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I was going to say the exact same thing, that for me, it's like that moment of breathe, because you want your reader to be on the edge of their seat. You really want them to be sort of holding their breath as they're going through these creepy moments. But then you want to give them that, moment where, as you said, it's all safe, it's all good. Okay, breathe again. We're back to everything's real. Everything's okay. So yeah, Kim.
Yeah, totally. And funnily enough, I also think that format, which people call like scene sequel format. So you'll have like the scene where all the action happens, and then the sequel is the thing that comes after. And that's where the characters digest and like ruminate on what happened and understand it more, and just gives the readers a breath. So I think even when it's not a spooky story for kids, like every story kind of needs that. And it actually helps the action parts feel more intense when you're able to take that break and have that little debrief and kind of think over what happened. Because, in my shoes as like a freelance editor, when I'm like reading people's manuscripts, like sometimes I find myself doing this too, like trying to cram in like action. You never want to take a break because it has to be exciting. And then you realize that doing that, it makes it so much more boring. And you don't have any time to sit back. And sometimes it's the anticipation that makes things exciting, or it's the dread that makes things exciting, or it's all of that. So like you need that time to think, just even from like a writerly perspective. So yeah, I think that's so important and such a great question. And I have to say too, like I love all these people that are just loving on Bobby Cho out there. Great character, great example of this.
My early readers, thank you all.
Yeah, Bobby Cho is the best. Amazing. I love it. But yeah, that's so good, and so many great things about spooky middle grade. But Ash, I feel like you have a burning question that you were like on the verge of asking, and I interrupt you with my Bobby Cho love, which I can't help it. I mean, I'm the Bobby Cho fan club president, basically, but.
Well, oh my goodness. So I guess my question was more like a personal author question through the lens of like Thelma. Like, it's very obvious to me that Thelma has like this great, like, not only appreciation for her friends and like their unique talents and their gifts, but she has like this great affection for the people around her too. Like, are there people in your life who have inspired characters, or have you had like certain relationships that have had like a similar flavor? I guess how much of that warmth that is in the Thelma B stories is coming from your own life, and like what have you been able to like impart, I guess, as an author into your books, to your readers?
I love that question, and it is making me think back, like who's about who here, right? I think that like that warmth is, I mean, because the scary parts are fun and the funny parts are like fun, and I love it, but like that warmth that you reference is that's the crux of it all. That's the thing that makes the series tick, that it makes everything work. And I've written things that I thought were like cool that didn't have that warmth, and they just didn't work. You know what I mean? And I think that like it's really an amalgam. I think that there is, you know, my dad is very different than Henry B, but our relationship is kind of like that. My dad's a telephone man. You know what I mean? He's not, you know, an antique store owner, but, you know, that kind of feeling of like, and I think I wanted, and in the second book, she does have to grapple with parental issues in a way that is a lot more complex than in the first book. But there's I think because of the relationship that I have with both of my parents, I think that that seeped into the whole story in a way that was, I was probably only like semi aware of. But, you know, sometimes I read a story where it's like, you can really like those really super like crispy hard edges with the parental figures, you know what I mean? And that's a really important story. And it's just, it's very different than Thelma, because Thelma, like, it's got a lot to go on, but like that feeling, you know what I mean? Of like, when you're young and the in the world is just like the four walls that you're inside, and like her like real like treasuring, like that she really like, she wants to go out and explore everything in the whole wide world, but like deep in her heart, she like has this treasure that has been given to her by the way that she's been raised. And I think that, like, you know, from like a personal perspective, I think that like I was given that gift by my parents, and I think it kind of seeps over into the story. That's very sweet to think about, and I've never really thought about that before. Thank you, Ash. And I think
it comes through so strongly. Like, I think it's such an, maybe not like directly, but just the warmth of it is such an invitation for the reader to come enjoy that too. It's so lovely. Like, I'm so eager to pass it on to my own kids, because it's so nice for them to have like that kind of like adventure and tension, but also like that really deep sense of like belonging and love and softness too. It's lovely.
And I think that like kind of the like even in the, I guess like there's like the conflict that I'm really interested in is like, so this is gonna, I'm gonna kind of like, I don't know. I used to do a lot of improv comedy, like in college, and like I went to like, you know, New York City in my 20s and all this kind of stuff. And we had some really great teachers, and the best teachers we ever had. So improv is when two people get on stage and there's no script and you just go for it. And this is something that really stuck with me. Bad scenes happen a lot of the times when someone comes on stage, another person comes on stage, and they're like arguing and like trying to like get at each other and like, you know, make each other look foolish and everything. And the scenes that I really love to watch always, and even the TV that I love to watch, is when two people are maybe complete and utter fools, but they're standing together being complete and utter fools. You know what I mean? They're not arguing about they're mirroring each other instead of, you know. And it's amazing how far you can go in a scene that's written or that's scripted or that's you know, or not written, just with people essentially like being on each other's team and like having each other's back. And you can still have conflict, but you're not going at each other. You're not disliking. There's none of that. You know what I mean? And even, you know, in the story, Izzy is a character who is like prickly as all get out, but underneath it, she's woven just as tightly together with them. And you get to see that kind of thing. So I think that is like a lesson from improv comedy that I've applied to my writing, because I think it's so much more interesting to see people love on each other and get along and then face bad things together than, you know, try to cut each other off.
That's so interesting. And so I don't know if this is going to be like a digression. I don't think so. But just today, I was listening to on NPR, like this author talk about their book. I think it's called Platonic, but it makes me think of this relationship that authors have with their books and the way that they create relationships, like in the stories, and how it's related back to like our personal experiences, whether we realize it or not. Because in the story, like the author was talking about the different ways that people approach relationships based on how their relationships were as children. So if they didn't have like this really comforting, loving home, then maybe they approach new relationships like with a lot of anxiety, and they're really concerned that, you know, something's wrong, and they have to constantly be like trying to check up on it and do this, and that ends up like driving people away. Or they're avoidant and they just like avoid it altogether. And I feel like, you know, it's just so interesting to think about. So you've had like this great, you know, all of this love like in your childhood, and it's like coming through naturally like in these books. And sometimes I don't know if we even like think about that necessarily, because I find myself too like maybe in a different way like recreating things like relationship styles, and I'm always like recreating those in my books without really thinking about it. But that's so interesting to kind of go back and like we can learn a lot about Erin Petti from this book. And I'm just picturing now that you grew up with this amazing like Scooby gang, you're hanging out doing hot chocolate and hunting ghosts all day and just like being awesome like friends. It's like, it sounds amazing.
Well, I was not hunting ghosts. And actually, like, my mom thinks this is hilarious, this whole career path. Like, she thinks that this is like just the height of hilarity, because like I was so scared of everything. So I was not hunting ghosts when I was little, but I definitely had some hot chocolate. That much is true.
I love that. So let's see, we had a question come in and about these scary, terrifying elements, or to quote Bobby Cho, legit terrifying elements in the series. So question for the group, was there a moment that came as you were writing that was surprisingly scary for even you and not necessarily something that you had plotted? Sorry, it continues like off screen. So something that was like surprised us in how scary it was, and maybe we didn't see it coming. But Erin, we'll start with you and Thelma B. I mean, was there something in this new book that you didn't even see coming? Because there's a lot of cool, like you mentioned, like tree monsters, and there's this like Fenrir-esque like character and witches, and we have all of this. So was some of that like you didn't expect?
So I think so. And we've kind of talked a little bit about this in other chats about like sometimes when you have to like outline things too much, you miss the surprises that come up. And I thought about that conversation a lot since the last time we had it. And I don't want to give anything away, but I'll say, yeah. And it's, and I'll actually in the third, so I'm like writing the third book now, and I started writing a part of it and I like had to stop, and I was like, that scares me. Like, is that too scary? Like, because it's like a thing. And then I was considering it, and it's like, okay, I'm going to write it and then we'll go back and revise if we need to revise, and, you know, all this kind of stuff. But I don't want to give anything away in the second book, but there's something that happens with the, one of the people who's really facilitating all this stuff. And she does something in the woods, and I kind of wrote it and I was like, ew, like, oh, I hate that she just did that. But it absolutely facilitates the story, and it works. And then we make a joke afterwards, and it's okay. But yeah, for sure. What about you, Marina?
Oh, I have to say, as I was thinking, I write things that scare me all the time. That's what I try to do. You know, I as all authors do, we really truly do write the kinds of stories we enjoy reading, and wish we would have had when we were younger. So I like really scary things. So I try to put a lot of it in there. But the scene that came to mind that kind of came out of nowhere unexpectedly, I think I have to go back to my book, The In Between, because, you know, it's the title gives a lot away, but I don't think it necessarily gives away the what and the why and the where and the everything. But as you know, there's an elevator in that hotel, and the elevator goes up, and certainly elevators do go down. And I knew the elevator would go down, but when the elevator doors opened, I really didn't know what I was going to see. And what ended up being there is something that scares me. So I don't know if it scares my readers, but I think quite honestly, yeah, that was a little moment that came as a surprise to me. I knew it was going down, but I didn't know what I would find when those doors opened. And what I put there, I think, was kind of like, I'm not sure if I should, but I will.
Well, of course you should, right? You always should. That's the answer. I thought of, my first book, Skeleton Tree, was a surprise because I discovery read the whole thing, which is super fun. And I just started with my little what if question that we always talk to kids about in our visits that we do. What if this boy discovered a finger bone in his backyard and then it started to grow into a full-size skeleton that only children could see? What would happen next? And that was literally all I started with. And so to me, in my head, I'm like, oh yeah, fun fantasy, dancing skeletons, shenanigans. And I didn't realize it was going to take this kind of more serious turn. Like I didn't know where the story was going until it happened. And so, yeah, that definitely surprised me, that I kind of, verged into this area of like real life scary things that we deal with, and it became this more serious story that I didn't necessarily see coming. But yeah, that's a great question. I feel like it's just another instance where those things that we don't even realize are bubbling under the surface will come up in our writing, even if they're not in our like conscious conscious mind. But what about you?
Well, I guess while I was writing A Touch of Ruckus, which is a ghost story set in the mountains, I had structured it out. Like I kind of knew the general plot, but I decided that I wanted to leave all of the haunting scenes to be completely discovery process, because I knew that if I plotted it out, I wouldn't scare myself. And I needed to scare myself for it to be like really visceral. And I did. Like so many times I was writing, I was like, whoa, I'm a bad person. And then it just kept writing. And I think one of my favorite moments was when one of the characters, Fox, is a ghost hunter that's really enthusiastic about it. And the other one just wants to hang out with Fox and be near them because she has a crush on him. And so they were sitting in a pup tent together outside in the woods, and they knew that there was a possibility of haunting. So they started playing that game where you like draw pictures on each other's backs and like guess what it is as you're falling asleep. And so there's a moment where she thinks that they're drawing on her back, Tennessee does. And then when she rolls over, they're totally asleep. And that's not who was drawing on her back, which totally gave me the giant shivers. I won't give away what was drawn on her back. But yeah, when I wrote that, I was like, ooh, that's bad.
You just scared me. I love that.
Yeah, a little shiver. That's not the scariest scene in the book, but that was the one that I felt the most, almost a little bit guilty about putting it.
Yes, I love that. And it's perfect for kids because everybody played that game, I feel like, when we were kids. So it's so relatable. I feel like that kind of takes us into our next question, too, that we had, a follow-up to our last one. How do you gauge if something is too frightening for your audience? And for one thing for me that I think of is, in middle grade, we're keeping everything in that kid's perspective. So talking about like things that are relatable to kids, and you can have things that are really, really scary and disturbing even, but you're going to filter them through that lens of your main character, who's probably like 12-ish or something like that. And so they don't necessarily understand all of the really disturbing like edges of what's going on. They only understand it through the lens of their experience, and that kind of renders it less scary for the reader. So that's like one thing that I would say. But Erin, what would you say about that question? Because there are lots of fun and terrifying elements in Thelma Bees.
I think it's a really interesting question. And Kim, I wouldn't have had that language that you just used, but that's exactly that's it. I mean, because you can make it. There are some horrifying things that happen between these two books. And I think that like it was with like a colleague like years ago, and she says like it's something that happens at the end of the first book, and it's to, the big bad guy who's trying to do all these terrible things, but something really bad happens to him. And she just said it like outright, like through an adult's lens. And I was like, oh my God, like I would never. And then I was like, oh no, that's what I wrote. Yeah, that's in the book. But it just sounds so different coming from an adult perspective. And I think that that's the key, is that these things can be really, really scary. But there are these, there's this circle around what my 11-year-old understands, you know what I mean? And it's not even something that you just get into writing in that voice. So you just write the story through that voice. And I think that you can kind of use your imagination and through that lens, make it as scary as possible. Now I have a 9-year-old who is not like a huge fan of ghosts, and we started listening to the audiobook. She loves book 2 because book 2 is more witch heavy than ghost heavy. But we started listening to book 1 on audio after book 2 because she was like, all right, I'm into this. And the audio, as we said, my narrator, Bonnie Jean Betcher, is a genius and she's amazing. And she really makes it scary in book 1. the whole kind of like first haunting thing. And we're on we're like driving, and I keep like turning around to my daughter. I'm like, we can listen to something else. Like, just, because I'm like, that was the only moment where I was like, I think I made a mistake. I think this is too scary. But, I think that we got through it, and she really liked it. But, yeah, I think that in general, like you can make it as scary as an 11 or a 12-year-old can perceive and still be fair play with middle grade. What do you think, Ash?
While you're talking, I kept on thinking about the movie Edward Scissorhands and how utterly horrifying that is as a premise. Like, you could go really, like, if you told it from a really nitty gritty, harsh adult lens, it could be a lot like Heckraiser and the Cenobites. You know what I mean? Like, it could be truly awful, right? Like, and we could come away feeling like very almost like depressed a little bit, right? But instead, it's like this warm, feel good story about a person who has scissors for hands. And I think the context of like this really loving, accepting mother figure that's in the story, and the soft soundtrack, and the fact that Edward is able to engage like art and topiaries and like these funny haircutting scenes. Like, there's so much softness injected into the storytelling that the whole storytelling is like an invitation to softly process the horror, as opposed to just like being, like bleakly smacked in the face with something really terrible like Schindler's List, right? So yeah, I think I totally agree with you, Erin. Like, I noticed all throughout your book, there are like these kind of funny adult characters who are like humorous, but also like kind of nurturing in their own way. And there's so much like food and warmth and humor. Like, the whole thing is like, it's like Halloween, right? It's an invitation to come and like have fun and laugh at the things that are really awful. Like, Halloween decorations are really terrible if they were realistic. Like, if we found it in our bathroom unexpected and it was real, it would be horrible. But like on Halloween, we put it on our porch and invite small children to eat candy. So, yeah, it's like hospitality almost. Yeah. What do you think, Marina?
So yeah, all of you have said it so super well. I guess the only thing that I often say is I do write some really dark things in my books, and usually the darkest parts are the parts that are real life scary things. And so I have people who say, well, how can you put that in a middle grade book? And so my answer is, I always say, it's not the what, it's the how. So, we can talk about, like, I don't want to, give any specifics away, but we can talk about a certain real life horrific thing from an adult perspective, as you say, and there would be a different how as how you would write that. But you can actually write about that dark thing in a middle grade book. I really do stand by it. I might be criticized for it sometimes, but I think it's just the how you deal with it. And, I think, I've managed to put some really, scary things in there. I mean, in a box of bones, I have not been called on this at all. And I think that nobody's even noticed this one thing that I snuck in there that's really, really, really bad about one of the girls and her life story. But I think I just kind of slipped it on in there, right? Where, and as you say, the kids, what they see everything through their lens and their experience isn't broad enough. So the people who say it's too scary are the adults looking at it through their perspective, and they're reading way more into it than the middle grade reader. So the middle grade reader is experiencing some of this superficially, right? Versus, the adult reader who brings everything with them into that story and goes, wow, that is really, and I'm like, the kids don't even balk at that. Like they think it's, that creature you've described over there, that's creepy. And you're like, oh, no, that's nothing compared to that, right? But they're not seeing it that way. So I always say you can do it. It's just how, right? How you do it. That would be very different. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so good. And I love, so we're talking about like from the reader's perspective, but that's the other beautiful thing I love about middle grade is pretty much every narrator is an unreliable narrator just because of their limited knowledge of the world. So that's it's so much fun to write that because you're almost always writing this character that doesn't fully understand their situation, and they're just coming into things with this incomplete knowledge and this naivete. And so that helps them have this perspective that just kind of makes everything feel a little bit less scary. And then, of course, the obvious thing, which some adult horror things do this too, which is we end on a sense of hope, like regardless of where we went, like whatever we went through, we always end on some sort of little flicker of hope. There's never going to be that middle grade novel that's like an adult horror novel where, your entire life has been just ravaged. And in the end, even though you maybe defeated the monster, everything is still horrible. And there's just this lingering sense of dread that will never leave you. That's not going to be the ending of a middle grade novel because we have to end with a sense of hope. And that's the other defining quality I always think of. Unless you're doing short stories, which I love that we mentioned the short story versus like novel thing earlier, because I have a short story and I'm super psyched that I got it into this amazing collection called Don't Turn Off the Lights, and it totally ends with that sense of like lingering dread. But you can only do that, I feel like, if you're being, in a big collection next to a bunch of like really funny stories that are, balancing it out. So that can work. But wow, we've gone through like so much time and we have so many more questions. And I know people out there have so many more questions. If you do have questions, get those in the comments. But we haven't even gotten out the tarot deck yet. So are we going to get it out? Like tell me things about myself. I need to know desperately. Or like, what are we?
So I will preface this by saying like, so I am a person who admires tarot very much, and I don't know as much as Ash does about this at all. Don't raise your eyebrows, Ash, because you gave me a 1-card reading that was so good a couple of months back and so insightful. So the tarot cards are, so this is the tarot deck that I have with me today, and I want to see what Ash has too. Just kind of, where's my camera? The Everyday Witch Tarot by Deborah Blake. And I'm happy to pull a card for you, Kim. Or we could see what Ash has afterwards too, and Marie. So why don't I'll pull a card for Kim. Ash, do you want to pull a card for Marina? And then I'll pull a card for you. Is that fun? Okay, so Kim.
Okay.
Are you ready?
I'm ready. I need some help. Just in every aspect of everything.
So are you thinking of anything in particular?
I don't know. Just like I'm thinking of just like where should I put my focus right now? Like,
okay, so I have an answer for you.
Okay.
As I was shuffling, and I know, so I was shuffling the cards, and sometimes readers don't take cards that pop out when you shuffle, but I kind of like to because I feel like the tarot card is like, hey, it's me. I'm for Kim. So this is I don't know if you're watching the new Game of Thrones show, but this reminds me of
haven't yet. Oh, nice.
This is the Queen of Wands.
Very cool.
The queen and all of these cards too, why I actually got them in the first place is because I have a little black cat named Lucy, and there's like a little black cat in almost every single one of these cards.
That's so
cute. I'm a little nervous reading you in front of Ash because I know she knows better than I do, but for me, the Queen of Wands is someone either in your life or probably you who feels really passionately about their kind of like life purpose, like the things that they do. They're like and if you're like, what do I do? And you get the Queen of Wands, for me, that means like, get at it, like get out there and feel like loud and proud about the
Okay.
things that you love. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So
Okay.
that is and the Queen of Wands kind of, she's not embarrassed. She's not serving anybody, anything else. She's just like whole in and of herself. And she has the ability to just make beautiful things happen just via her own energy and passion. So like the idea would be to like find that energy inside of you and like really, really embody it and like step into it.
Okay, can I serve some amazing looks while I'm riding on my dragon? Is that acceptable?
Yeah.
Or, okay, yeah, great. Great.
Yes.
Okay, that's amazing. I love it. I feel like when I pull one for myself and then I have to get out the little piece of paper and be like, what is this me? And it's like never as cool as like me riding a dragon just being amazing. So I'm gonna take this one. Love it. It's happening. Okay, so let's see. So Ash, you have a card. Tell us about the deck that you have too, I guess.
Oh, you're still on mute.
Okay, so I have this deck here. I'm expanding my thingy because I got a weird glare on my glasses. It's by an artist who lives in, I think used to live in Chattanooga, Tennessee, where I used to live. And her name is Paulina Cassidy, and this is the Joie de Vivre deck. And it's kind of like middle grade friendly. We got a little fox cooking up a pot of magic here. So I really love these little guys. Okay, so the one that I pulled, I was sitting here and I pulled a card called That's the Lovers. And so like I don't believe in predictive tarot and I don't believe in literal tarot, if that makes sense. So like the Lovers is like any mirror that you would approach and see in the reflection of a person or a thing something that you want for yourself, right? Not realizing that you already have it for yourself. So everything that you're thinking, oh, this person, I admire them so heavily. If they were in my life, then it would fix this. Or this job, if I had it and it were in my life, it would fix all of this. Like what you're looking for is actually inside of yourself. But at some point, generally speaking, someone has taken away from you or caused you to believe that you don't deserve it or you don't actually have it. So it's kind of like an invitation to reclaim that thing that you're constantly seeing in other people that you can't believe is true about you. So that's the Lovers. Yay.
Okay, that was frighteningly on with what's going on in my life. I was going to say on a very superficial level, is it because I have cover envy for all of you? I love your covers so much, but then no, honestly, when you said that in the end, wow, that's yeah.
You already got the good. You got it.
I have a lot to think about now. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know we were gonna like change lives tonight, y'all.
That's what it's all about. And so Ash, I'll pull one for Ash, but while I do kind of want to talk about because I have like so much admiration for witches in real life, and I have so much, I dabble in different kind of practices. I'm really like I really understand the importance of what it means to like have a woman or a man or anyone have power and feel connected, and that's what it's because there are witches in my book who it's like it's kind of like the throwaway. It's like, oh, they're witches, like the bad witches, the wicked witches, but I want to, and because the thing is like Thelma herself, right? Like she is truly a witch, in a very, very real way. And I wanted to play with the ideas, and I don't, if we're not all the way through the second book yet, this might not come to full circle yet, but I really wanted to play with the ideas of what a witch is and what we think a witch is and how we judge a witch and what the ramifications of that are across characters and across time and across geography, and how complicated it can be now that the lines can get blurry, and people who were persecuting a couple hundred years ago, where are they now, and what does their lineage mean versus, people who were persecuted a couple of hundred years ago, where are they now, and what does that mean, and how do these things kind of interconnect? So even though it's like
so many levels and so many different streams of life, my goodness.
But it's because I feel like it's important to talk about, because like it's a witch book, right? And we have an idea of what that is, and there's a lot of play throughout the book, figuring out what that is, and some of it's really super stereotypical. I think my sister's a witch, you know what I mean? Like it's like she's weird with all these girls, you know what I mean? And it's like it's freaking me out, and she's doing weird witch stuff. Like it's from that, and then the layers kind of like weave in and out until we find at the very end of the book where the core of it, for Thelma's story anyway, and for the centuries that led to where she's standing right now, where that leaves the conversation. And it's not black and white for her. And so I just, because like I know I'm using the everyday witch deck. We're talking a lot about witches and Halloween, but I really want to make sure that we open up the conversation and we think about it in a way that's as complex as it deserves. And I think that when kids read it, they're going to get a little hint of that complexity, which is something that I'm kind of excited about.
Yes, I'm very comfortable with the idea of like both embracing the camp of something and also like the complexity and the very real power of it too. I think that's awesome, Erin.
And for you, Ash, we got the Knight of Cups.
Ooh.
He flew out on his broom with his cup overflowing with bubbles in the shape of hearts, and his little kitty cat hanging on for dear life. So, and then Ash, that Knight of Hearts can mean for you, like as someone who knows the tarot, I want you to get whatever he means for you in. And for me, what he means is just like a loving, open heart that can love hard and then sometimes like turn and like not. Yes. And like the invitation is to like step into like the full, beautiful, loving feelings that you're feeling for whatever project or people or anything that's in your life. And the challenge to modify too, to not go hot and cold, but maybe like super warm and pretty warm.
Yes.
Kind of like modulate the big feelings so that you can preserve all of the beautiful messages that are coming through to you, all the beautiful gifts that want to come through to you, and all the beautiful love that you can kind of like push through to your friends and family and everyone in your life, in your readers.
I love that. I love that so much. That's so good. I will take that and run with it. Absolutely. Yeah. I need all of that in my life that I can get right now. So
I love the Knight of Cups. Yeah.
That's such a beautiful card too. I love the writing with the cup and the bubbles and the
so excited.
I love it.
He's even got little hearts on his cape. I don't know if you can see, and he's barefoot. I love this.
I love that so much. I vibe with that card. That's good.
That's so cool. So we got a knight, a dragon queen, lovers, amazing. Okay, wait, did we do Erin? Should we do Erin like as our final? Yeah.
Oh, that's so fun. Thank you, Ash.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Am I pulling another one? Here we go.
Let's pull another one.
Let's go, Erin. I'm shuffling.
The suspense is killing me.
I know, right? It's killing me too.
Anticipation.
Oh,
it's killing
me. We need,
Yeah. We need where are all my Tim Curry gifts when I need them? Come on.
Okay. Here we go. We got the moon. So the moon is like, my goodness, what is the moon not, right? The thing I love about tarot is that it's not like, I don't know, I think you're always learning it, and you're always it's always open to interpretation for like the specific situation, you know what I mean? But the moon is like an invite to, I always feel like, for me personally, and maybe it resounds with you too, it's like an invitation to like do a deep dive into my own like emotions and dark side sometimes, and also like a time of like, it's almost like a time for me of like respite after a big push, which totally makes sense with today being a launch day for you. Like it's kind of like an invitation to like feel the pull of your own heart and your own spirit in the same way that like the moon is pulling on the tide. Like there's a lot of big cyclic energy, I think, too, with the moon. Like there are big cycles, there are big cycles of creation and completion. So I feel like this one is just saying happy launch day, Erin. Please remember to take care of yourself. You've gone through such a big creative cycle, so it's time for you to take really good care of yourself and come into your heart and honor yourself, because you've done a really amazing thing for the world and for our beautiful bookshelves.
Oh, Ash, thank you. I love that so much. And I love the moon card. I know it can be like a spooky, tricky one too, but I personally always really vibe with the moon, no matter what. Yeah.
Yes,
thank
indeed.
you.
That's so cool. I feel like we're all moon people, probably. I mean, of course, I prefer moon bathing to sunbathing. Like, who doesn't? But yeah, that's so amazing. Well, if anybody has a final burning question, get that in the chat, because we're just winding up here. But this was so much fun to talk all about Thelma B. And I'm like so close to being done with the audiobook. I can't wait. I'm super excited to see what's going to happen. So if you haven't checked it out, check out the book or check out the audio. It's super amazing. And I feel like it's the perfect entree into Halloween season. It just really sets the perfect Halloween tone. So definitely check it out. And huge thanks to everyone for joining us tonight. Marina, Ash, and of course, Erin, thanks for joining us. And if anyone out there, by the way, would like to have some more spooky author action in the future, and you are a teacher or a librarian working with grades 3 through 8, hit us up over at spookymiddlegrade.com, because we do free visits. They look just like this. There's like 4 of us. We just answer kids' questions all about writing and publishing and books and all of this amazing stuff. So they're super, super fun. So definitely head over there and check those out if you haven't already. And so, yeah, so sometimes I play us out with music, but today I don't have it. So we're probably going to have to do something. We're going to have to like howl at the moon, or we're going to have to like make spooky noises to play ourselves out. So Erin, it's your day. So you can decide like what kind of amazing thing are we going to do to play ourselves out tonight?
Oh my gosh. I don't know. Do we have any a cappella folks here? I don't know how to do that.
Oh, I feel like Ash has regaled us one time with a song. So perhaps they are the expert. I don't know.
What song would be fitting for the second Thelma B book? I'm on something else too. Like,
let's see. There's a little bit of like wolf action. So
the only song that's coming into my head is "Oh, Werewolves of London."
Okay, I love it.
You've done it.
Do it.
Perfect.
Okay. Yeah, there you go.
So I only know that part now that you just did. So here
me too. Go. I just realized after I suggested it, all I know is that's not helpful. It's not at all helpful.
I keep seeing that scene with all the frogs in Harry Potter.
Devil, yeah, the Toil and Treble song. Yeah, right.
The frogs.
Okay.
No, so my I wish I had it like queued up. I'm gonna just talk forever about Bonnie Jean Betcher and Bean Audio, who did the audiobook. So Kim, I think you probably heard it because she wrote Thelma B music.
I did.
has the so
Yeah.
she did it for the intro for the first book, and then on the second book, she herself is an a cappella singer. So she like layered her own voice over like the piano and made this incredible intro and outro music.
Wow.
So maybe you know, after this, everyone can just go look, because it's in the book trailer. I put it in the book trailer, so everyone can just go look at that and check it out. Because we
I
do
remember,
have the official Thelma B soundtrack thanks to Bonnie Jean. So
That is so cool. I remember thinking, like, as soon as I turned it on, I was like, what is this amazing music? How did this get so amazing? Like, it was really good. I was like,
she's
wow.
amazing. She's
Wow.
amazing.
It was awesome. But all right, well, let's do, so what are we doing? Do the werewolf again. What are we doing?
Oh no, that's the only part. I know.
That's my only thing.
That's
All
the only
right.
part. Here, let's see. I should have looked it up.
I thought we can just howl. We can just be like, ooh, werewolves. I don't know what the, the tune is.
There you go.
There he is.
Yeah.
Happy
Okay.
big birthday, Erin.
Thank you.
Happy big birthday.
You
Ow. We'll just have to go. Ow.